Oh, hello. So today we are going to restore another Raggedy Ann doll, but this one is a real Annabelle doll. It's made by the Knickerbocker Toy Factory, and it is basically almost identical to the one I had as a child. She needs some help. She needs some TLC. She has stains on her face. She does have some spot treatment I'm gonna do to get some stains out. But other than that, her dress is intact. I really love the floral pattern on this dress. It's so pretty. And she also has her full hair intact, which I was really happy about. Like I said, her dress is pretty much in mint condition, as well as her hair. But she does have a few little holes on her legs that I can easily fix with a needle and thread. They're really not that bad at all. So I'll just patch those up. And then when you turn her over, she does have the I love you heart that all of the original Raggedy Ann dolls back then had. I might have to tighten up some elastic parts on her dress, so I got some elastic and some white fabric I got from the fabric store, some pink thread I may or may not use. But for her face stains, I decided to go with a mixture of basically soapy water that was really, really warm with like a teeny tiny amount of bleach. And I just dabbed on the cleaning solution and lightly scrubbed it with a toothbrush. I made sure the water was really warm too. And then afterwards, I did blot any remaining moisture off with a paper towel so you don't have, wet rings. So now I have to make the pattern for her apron because her dress did not come with one. The dolls originally did come with an apron. So I just took the dress, and folded it in half to give myself an idea of how the shape of the apron should look. With my drafting pencil, I just marked where I wanted the top of the apron to be and the bottom, and then the sides, which I'm going to be cutting on the fold to make this, of course, longer. I did decide later on that I was going to cut this a little bit longer because I wanted to gather it to give it more shape. She's a rag doll, so she doesn't have a lot of shape. You have to add those things to these kind of, garments for dolls. Otherwise, they look really blocky. And her dress already is a very blocky design. So I went ahead and cut out my pattern. So if I want to make another apron for her later on, I can just use this over and over again. That's why we use patterns. So we don't have to guess things. We can just save them and make all kinds of things. So I got my white fabric and I cut out enough that I needed not only to make the apron, but also to make the straps for the shoulder straps and around her waist. As I mentioned before, I made this a little bit longer than I actually wanted it to be because I'm going to gather near the top of the apron with some elastic. So I need to make room for that. The little notches that I'm cutting, those are to indicate where the straps are going to be sewn. As you can see, it's super wrinkly, so I went ahead and ironed all of that, as well as a strip of fabric that I cut up to make the straps for the apron as well. Right here, like I said, I just folded it over 1 inch and made 3 of those. The These are some cool things I found at the fabric store today. These cool appliques and this really cool bridal trim. And it has this really delicate pink cord in it. I'm using red thread. So Knickerbocker made these rag dolls and they used a lot of red thread. So I'm just keeping the tradition, using some red thread to, you know, accent the apron and make it more interesting. Otherwise, using all white thread, it just looks like a boring regular apron. And I just wanted it to look more vintage and more up to standards of what Knickerbocker did back then. On the bottom part of the apron, I hemmed it with a red zigzag stitch. Like I said, I wanted it to look kind of vintage and unique. So I really was filling this zigzag stitch. On the top part of the apron, I just kept it simple with a red straight stitch. Where you see those dots, that indicates where I'm going to be putting those straps, by the way. So right now I'm getting a ruler and measuring 1.5 inches down from the top of the apron and then drawing a line with my drafting pencil. This is to indicate where I'm going to be putting my elastic to create that gathered portion of the apron to make it have more shape. So what I'm going to do is pull this elastic as tight as I possibly can and then sew it down with a zigzag stitch. Sewing elastic is really tricky. It does take a lot of practice. But once you get it down, it makes really cool gathered effects. And you can execute that pretty fast once you get the hang of it. It took me a while, I won't lie. I was not always good with elastic at all. But see how cute that looks? Then you don't have to sew it down with a straight stitch and then do it by hand. It's actually really fast when you use elastic. So now I'm just sewing down the straps with a straight stitch. And I am going to also trim down that extra amount on the side just to make sure my strap is nice, sleek, and crisp when I iron that down. You really, really want to iron down these things. It will make everything so much easier to sew, and it's also a lot more presentable. I used to be really lazy and never iron things down, but I've really learned that yes, it's necessary. Yes, you see this? I am actually threading my straps inside out the old-fashioned way with a safety pin. You don't have to do that. There's easier ways. I need to iron down my straps, so I pin them to my ironing board just to keep them steady. And I sewed my straps with the seam facing up, basically in the middle, and ironed those down as straight and flat and crisp as I could, using a lot of steam. This iron that I'm using is older than me. I think it's over 40 years old. It belonged to my grandmother and I've been using it ever since. It works really good. But I am going to invest in a better one, I promise, once I can. Alrighty, so I just half and half my straps. I cut 3 of them out, and I don't know why I did that. I really only needed 2. So with the half of the strap, I'm sewing that along the edge of the elastic. And this is to tie the apron around Raggedy Ann's waist. And I'm also gonna sew another strap on the other side too, so we can tie those together. And then I also took the other strap, cut that in half, and use that to sew straps around the arm. And the apron is done. Isn't that cute? I also noticed the elastic around her little panelettes. The waistband part was really loose, so I turned them inside out, got some elastic, pulled it really tight, and zigzag stitched all the way around. And that tightened her panelettes right up, right around her waist, so they don't droop down. They were drooping down to her ankles, and it just looked really stupid, so I tightened up her panelettes so they didn't do that. Looked really sloppy. And of course I used red thread. I just really love this red thread effect on the Raggedy Anns. It looks really cool. So you look nice and stretchy again. And she's all done. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching me do these nerdy restorations on rag dolls and stuff. So as you can see, I added a little more to her apron. I went ahead and cut a 2-inch strip of white fabric and then made pleats with it every 1.5 inches, and sewed that to the bottom of the apron because I messed up. I didn't do my seam allowances correctly, so actually the apron was too small for her. But that little pleated bottom edge actually made it look just perfect. So it's really exciting to get my hands on one of these. I bought her on eBay for dirt cheap, but they do not go dirt cheap if you find them in this great of condition. Like I said, she is a larger Raggedy Ann, like I had as a kid. She's 35 inches. So I'm really excited to have another large Annabelle doll in my house, bringing me good luck because she's a good-spirited doll. I think she's proud of the work we did today.